and grinding through a holiday like this, just to do my podcast of all things.
That's right. Yeah, this morning got up early, warmed up my voice, recorded my fan mail episode for Fan Mail Friday where I answer listener questions. Did Minisode Monday where I offer a quick practical tip, recorded a bunch of commercials. Now I'm on your show. After this, I got to go through my PR list with my assistant. I got 2 hours of Chinese lessons. I'm going to go work out. Then
come on.
I got to record a video. And then I've got to record a couple more commercials, and then I'll be done at dinner, and I can eat a burger or a hot dog.
And why? I mean, is that normal, and you just don't take off for the holiday, or you just try to cram a bunch of stuff in the holiday then?
Well, that stuff would have to come in another time during my work week. You can imagine what my work week looks like if this is my 4th of July.
All right. So, this isn't just small talk here. I'm kind of curious about this amount of drive. I mean, I basically picked up on it pretty quickly listening to your podcast when I first found it, which I don't remember how long ago it was, but I'm kind of trying to understand, what I do on this podcast is try to understand people. I learn really well from just analyzing stuff, figuring out how it works, and then I'm attracted to the things that I think will help me in the end. That's how I learn music, and verbal stuff is the same way. I just kind of pay attention, and I retain the information that I think may be useful later. But you stick out to me as somebody who's doing a whole bunch of stuff at a pretty accelerated rate, accomplishing a lot, and I'm just kind of curious what's behind that.
I don't know. I think when I was a kid, I wasted a lot of time watching TV, and now that I have something I actually want to do, it's like it can't happen fast enough, if that makes sense.
Well,
so I'd much rather get it done and work. And it's not like if somebody went, hey, we're doing something really cool for 4th of July and it's really convenient nearby, you should come join us. I have people who are like, yeah, come over later maybe and get a hot dog. I'm like, okay, well, I could do a lot more with my day. And then I asked Jen what she wanted to do, and she was like, I don't care. The mall's going to be packed. Outside's going to be packed. And since we work from home, I could take tomorrow off, if I wanted to.
But I bet you won't.
I won't. I will not. But I could take off another time, and then I don't have to worry about doing the same time off as everybody else at the same time. I'll watch fireworks tonight. I'm not going to be all like checking my email during that. I'll go up on my roof and do that. I might, go to a friend's and have a barbecue, but might as well have a productive morning.
Yeah, I hear that. So have you always been focused and dedicated to the thing at hand? Was that something you discovered in childhood or later in life?
Have I? I've always been a guy who goes deep dive on everything. That's for sure. But I don't know if I've been dedicated or focused. I've been more like intense.
Yeah.
This though is more long-term. It's a grown-up project. It's a business, Art of Charm. So that's been a little bit more, I think, more of a long-term thing that requires good work habits.
What were the things that your intensity was channeled towards when you were 13 or
good question.
8, 15, anything?
I was always looking on. I grew up right when the internet first started, before the World Wide Web. So that gives you an idea of kind of like what I was doing. So I was always chatting online with foreign people and trying to read things like on the internet, figure out how the internet worked. And I liked screwing around with the phone system. That got me in trouble here and there. What else? I liked making things and taking things apart, like taking electronics apart.
Yeah, me too.
That's pretty much it. That's what I remember, as a kid.
Yeah, it's not. I'm just identifying with you. It's not about me, but I was completely into figuring out how stuff worked and hooking up the stereo and having my dad not understand how to hook up the Nintendo, and I could at an early age. I thought this makes sense. I was gratified by the fact that I could figure stuff out that didn't necessarily have instructions or take it apart or whatever. But how did that suit you in school? I got to
say, in fairness to your dad, the original Nintendo was really hard to hook up to the TV.
It was not. It had the little coax thing, and with it screwed into the coax, and that's about it.
Yeah,
had a
but
power plug.
Like some people had those converters where you had to unscrew the screws on the back of the TV and use those like little.
Oh yes, you're right. So it had that VHF little thing where you had to take the 2 screws and put the little lock things on it to get it to work.
Yeah.
That is right. I
Yeah.
remember that. That was hard.
And then you got to screw it into the coax. And if you have like a cable box, you got to buy a switch at Radio Shack
Right. Yeah.
that goes between cable and
Yes.
game or whatever.
That's right.
And then you got to run it to the Nintendo. Yeah.
That was my wavelength. But yeah, it irritated my father. Also, I thought was pretty good encouragement. Like he was probably just being lazy or just he may have been exaggerating that he couldn't figure it out. But it gave me a lot of confidence at an early age that I know how to do stuff like this, kind of thing.
Yeah,
But how was school for you then?
Terrible. I was so bored in school. And that manifested in me not wanting to be there, and that manifested in me feeling uncomfortable there. And it manifested in me getting in trouble with teachers because I wasn't paying attention and they thought I didn't care. And then, on top of that, I'm bringing things to school that are like a camera flash that I disassembled. So I have the capacitor leads sticking out, and the leads, generate 150 volts or 280 volts of electricity. So I'm touching these copper leads to metal objects in school, and it's making a loud pop, and the teachers are like, I feel like you can't have that, but you made it. It's electronic, but I don't really know why you can't have that, but you can't have that. And then the shop teacher came around and was like, look, this is cool. You made an arc welder. That's why the copper is sticking to the metal doorknobs everywhere. And I see the little coppered things on the doorknobs, but here's the problem. If someone touches those, they could die. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, that's a lot of current. It can stop a heart, including yours, if you touch it by mistake. And he goes, I'm not going to tell you to give it to me, but I will say you should stop using that thing. And I thought, okay, that's a wise teacher right there. And I stopped using that. But I always used to do stuff like that. And, before, I think his name was Butchko, before Mr. Butchko would find me and stop me with whatever I was doing, that I'd piss off the math teacher or the principal or whatever. There was always something.
So,
like that.
So after high school, then did you do college or what? When did you figure out how to learn and do the stuff you wanted? Did you ever fit into any formal education?
I did. I went to college and then I went to law school.
Okay, so you figured it. So you figured out how to work in that system at some point, then.
Yeah, it was interesting because I really did. I really was not fitting into the system during my, primary education. I was not fitting in at all. And then when I was an adult, I was like, all right, I can work hard so I can sort of like shoehorn myself in here, which is really not actually a good way to live your life. You don't really want to be constantly figuring out how to fit into a system if it's not going to serve you at all. But, I went to law school because I was able to work hard and I was able to sort of be smart here and there and, focus. And that turned out to be, really useful in law school. So I worked in law school. I tried out. I wasn't smarter than everybody, so I outworked everybody. I graduated in the top of the class. And that was important. That was important to me to do that.
Okay. So how come you're not a lawyer then?
I didn't like it at all. And I knew going into it that I wasn't really going to be a lawyer. I just, I just did it anyway. And yeah, it was okay for a minute, but it really wasn't a good fit for me. It wasn't. It was not like it wasn't something. It felt like it was only a matter of time till I get fired. I don't want to be here. I don't want to stay here. And there's got to be something better. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, I had a similar. I mean, I didn't finish all the way through with that, but I started in. I had a terrible time in school, and then I had a biology teacher that was really smart, and I could just sit and listen to him and understood it and could pass all the tests. I thought that was great. So I went into pre-med, went to biology at college, and was doing top of my class there. Then I got in the labs and realized what that job is if you get a biology degree, what that's going to be like, and I quit immediately. As soon as I figured out I'm going to be writing down, the meticulous nature of what doing science like that really is and how it's going to work out, I said, that. I am out of here, and I went to do music. So I found college to be a really useful time because it was I went to a music school, and music was kind of easy for me. It made sense, and so I didn't have to think much about the schoolwork to pass the test, but I was able to spend my whole college years basically just self-directed learning at music, figuring stuff out, learning to record, just doing all the stuff that I was really, really interested in.
Sure.
And that was really useful to me. So you must have figured out something about being self-directed learning and self-orienting your goals pretty quickly after law school. How long till you figured this stuff out that you wanted to do?
When I was in law school, I started the Art of Charm with my friend and who's now my business partner, AJ. Yeah. So we started this in law school. And then during law school, well, I mean, he was a cancer biologist, speaking of biology.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened after that? At that point, there was a point at which the economy started to go downhill and our business at Art of Charm started to go up. So I was just like, oh, this is a good cue for me to bounce.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened.
And so did you know what the Art of Charm was supposed to be? Did you visualize this at that time?
No, of course not. No, it was about, going out and meeting people and being social and meeting women and stuff like that. I was 25, 27, maybe.
But you were trying to. I mean, you were saying you were being successful making money though and stuff. What was the what was the goal of the pot? Were you trying to earn money and make it your career though? Also.
Oh, no, I wasn't. I didn't even think about it. I just thought, hey, this will be fun for a while. This will be a fun thing to do for a little bit, and then I'll be good to go. I'll figure out something else, so the economy will rebound, and I'll go back to being a lawyer maybe, which I know I don't want to do, but then that'll buy me time to think of something else. That was kind of my plan at the time.
Mm-hmm. So did you think of it as do you think now in longer term goals, or you still just do what comes to you at the time?
Good question.
I'm struggling in that area personally. I realize I ain't got no long-term goals. I'm always doing what's right in front of me. I'm beginning to think about a year ahead, and that's about it.
I definitely have longer-term goals, than that. I thought you meant like my whole life plan. I don't have
not even just that. Just even with the Art of Charm, like thinking 4 years down the road. Like, I think about that every day. Podcasting, I go, is this going to be a thing? Like, for right now, all I do is release music and podcasts. I do a bunch of different ones, but this may not be here in 5 years, right?
What might not be here in 5 years? Yeah, maybe. It might be something else.
I mean, things change no matter what in entertainment. So, what are we going to do next?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say podcasts are going anywhere. They've been around for 10 years, and they're getting more popular. So I don't know, like something, if they're gone, something would replace it that is probably very similar.
No, I agree. I agree, and I like the format and everything, but even just the nature of media and entertainment, even the shows that are popular, the taste may change as far as what people are into. Do you know? Like, do you see yourself doing Fan Mail Friday in 8 years from now?
Who knows?
Yeah,
I don't know.
So you don't. Possibly. You're not necessarily. I mean, you're. Are you thinking about just being flexible and responsive? Is what I'm saying. The other,
of course,
that's kind of more my approach. Is whatever it is, I'll go that way. Maybe something we don't even know about yet.
I would say don't confuse being flexible and responsive with not having a plan.
Got it.
That's those are two very different things, and one certainly sounds like an excuse for the other.
No,
I'm being flexible. No, you're laying on the couch.
Right. Yeah. No, that is certainly true. So it seems like it's you say advanced social skills. Is that the basic, quick way to say what Art of Charm is?
Yeah, we teach social intelligence in a way that anybody can learn and understand. And so what that means is, we study the thoughts, the actions, the habits of brilliant people, ask them what I hope are interesting questions so that the people who are listening can apply that same wisdom for themselves. So we take other people's superpowers, we deliver those superpowers to you. But it really is about that emotional intelligence.
And so, do you have an actual working definition for the word charm? It may just be the title that's evolved over time, but you don't think about that word itself very much?
Nah, never. I never do. People are always like, "What do you define charm?" And then I have to Google it, and it's like, oh, it's getting the answer without having to ask the question, or some stupid cliche from like a Audrey Hepburn movie. But it doesn't mean anything to me personally.
Yeah, well, it seems the only thing. I agree with all that. But I think I mentioned this to you on the Bad Christian podcast. But I grew up in the South, and so to me, when I think of the word,
I can tell by the accent.
I know you can.
Gives it away every time.
People throw that word at me a lot, which is not necessarily a thing I define or whatever. But they just think since I have a Southern accent, they say, "Oh, you're charming," or "You're using your charm." They will always say to me, and I realize that is possibly true. Like I have retained. I've lived in Seattle for 17 years, and this is still what I talk like. So it must be some form of effectiveness that has kept me from shedding it. My little sister's live in New York and Minneapolis, and hers is gone. I think she's embarrassed about it. But I find that the people in the South, to me, I find them to be very, very charming. And then I travel other places and I go, oh, they're not charming. I don't know if it's a thing I associate with the South or whatever, or have learned. But do you think there's anything to that, the regional component of that?
Sure, probably. I mean, look, people find the accent charming because our experience is mainstream media or non-mainstream media. You know, if you live in the South in a poor area, you probably don't find it charming because you associate it with people who live in a car that's propped up on cinder blocks and have, Klan meetings on, Thursday nights at a VFW or something, right? Like that's not charming for people who live in areas where that's their reality. So it's just you have the advantage of programming, society's programming people to find that charming. But the other thing is people don't necessarily find it sophisticated in many ways.
No, they don't.
So that's the downside that I think, because I'm sure your sister in New York meets people all the time. They're like, oh, you should have kept your accent. And she's like, yeah, that's what guys who are trying to sleep with me say all the time. But when I'm trying to get promoted at work, so no thanks. Because if I come in and I say, hey, y'all, I got a great idea for this Pepsi advertising campaign.
That's not bad. Most people do a terrible Southern accent. It
they do the twangy.
Nerves, but yours isn't that bad.
Yeah, mine is just from television.
Well, still, that's really good. Most people do a terrible job, so congrats. Have you thought about that much before? That's pretty
my
decent.
accent? No, it just came out.
No,
in fact,
that's pretty good.
Complete autopilot. But yeah, most people might not, and it's subconscious. That's the thing, right? So your sister might have been a little bit ashamed of it at first, or she might have been not caring at all at first, or she might have gotten over it. But then you start to see the results of what happens when you talk to people in a certain way. And that becomes problematic, right? That becomes problematic because if you start to notice that people start calling you sugar and not taking you seriously when you speak with your home accent, you're going to get rid of that accent pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, without a doubt, people, I'll put it this way, people underestimate your intelligence, which sometimes can be to your advantage, like you disarm, you can get pretty far with people and, it seems to work enough for me, but I am slightly disqualified. I think sometimes people think, but I don't know, if people hang around me for a little bit, they'll figure out if I'm smart or not. But
well, you're in a band though, like you don't have to be a freaking rocket scientist. And I'm not. No, that sounds a little insulting, but right. you could be as dumb as you want, man, and you still can play music.
That's true. That is true. But the other thing about it is that when you get the social thing about being in the South that I find crazy is that people just that they think it's nice and charming and funny until that they worry. Wait a second, I suppose this guy's a racist though. That's always along for the ride. Just if race comes up, like if I make any joke that you could make or anybody else makes, people say what. Hold on now.
Yeah. Matt's a great guy, except for that thing he has, that problem he has with Jews.
Right. Well, people in the South don't care about Jews.
No, that's passe. That's too passe, right? Now it's
not even on the radar. I mean, I know that's weird, but it's just like growing up, all I ever heard on the playground was racial slurs. That was just common. But
really?
No, nothing about Jews. I never even knew anything about Jews. We didn't know anything about them.
You don't have those. I met people from the South that were like, you're the first Jewish person I ever met. I'm like, well, my grandma's Jewish. I'm not really, I'm kind of like not really in there. And there was somebody I met that actually thought Jews had horns in the past. And since they used to have horns, now we have bumps on our head where the horns used to be, but now we don't have them anymore because we live in modern society. And I was like, you work in a city with other people that should have informed you that is not the case anymore. I mean, this person was not an attorney, but they had gainful employment.
No, we literally had I didn't even know anything about Jews. Like I had heard about them on TV, I guess, but I didn't know what they were. You got to have something in front of you to be, to dislike or hate or be racist against. I think if you don't experience with, I guess if you wound up experiencing it, you would. But I tell you what, Jews might have gone in the general camp of Yankee to the Southern.
Definitely.
So it's just Yankees, these New York people, these New Jersey people, they come down here, they're this and that. I guess Jews are probably in that category for us, but we didn't single them out.
So you had slurs against Jews. They were just lumped in with slurs against other groups.
Anybody that lived north of us, we didn't like.
In a way, that's sort of the ultimate slur. Like you don't even give them you don't even give us your own slur. You're just like, no, we just lump you in with everybody else we don't like. You're just in the general category,
the not us category.
Yeah, you don't even get a special one.
That's right.
You just have to be just other boring white people that we think are hoity-toity and pretentious. Damn,
that's right.
That's cold.
So if it's social stuff that you're interested in and advanced social skills, do you spend much time thinking about the future of social interaction being obviously technology based?
I don't spend that much time thinking about that. I think probably because I spend more time in it, right? I
Mm-hmm.
am online. I am marketing digitally. I am talking in a platform that uses the internet. I am on a microphone, et cetera. So I think that's probably why I don't spend a lot of time thinking about how to text better, because since I'm thinking about communication in general, I don't have to make it specialized. I think at the point at which you start saying things like communication online, you see
Yeah.
these things from
Yes.
like baby boomers, and you realize
Right.
that they're so out of touch that they don't realize that all communication right now is basically online
Right.
and the rest of it is in person. But the percentage of communication that is online, like you
That's
don't even
exactly
need to
right.
say,
That's
people
exactly
in
right.
their 30s and under, we don't have to specify online communication. We don't say netiquette.
Right.
When's the last time you used that word?
Right. Well,
Netiquette? You mean etiquette
yeah,
for
the whole
everything I
thing
do
is
that's
that
not
way.
in front of you?
That's right. Even the word virtual and the word online, both are almost, they just disappear. So at first they're tagged as, oh, you're on virtual this or that, and virtual shopping, online shopping. And then it's like, what do you mean? I'm just shopping. I mean, it's not,
Right.
that disappears, which if you project that farther into the future, it gets really freaky, of course, because you're like, oh,
Yeah.
simulations, virtual worlds. And they're not virtual. They're just world. It's just
Right.
in the world. So your answer, that's really interesting. You're saying that in social skills, it's just the water you're swimming in. So it doesn't differentiate from in person or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, nobody's like, hang on, I'm doing e-commerce. I'll be right there.
That's right.
There's nobody doing that.
But on the other hand, there's still a lot of nuances to the different forms. So like if you spend a lot of your time thinking about, or for instance, I'm highly verbal, so I'm great on the phone. I'm pretty good in this format, face to face. I'm good at
Mhm.
reading people. When you put me an email, I'm having a harder time. It's considerably
Yeah.
different, and there are different etiquettes or rules or strategies that are effective. You don't spend any time on thinking about that. It just all blurs together for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you're right. There is still a separation. For example, if I say I'm a marketer, you don't think, oh, he must create things for the internet. You might think that's part of it, but generally you think I work in an office and I make billboards and
Mm-hmm.
magazines. And like, if you're my age, 37, that's what comes to mind first. Maybe people who are 21 are like, yeah, you mean you create infographics and do social media? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that shakes out with people of other who are younger, like at the tail end of the millennial generation.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for most of us, when I think communication, yeah, I'm thinking email, Facebook, texting. I'm not necessarily thinking, oh, well, they must mean when I'm talking in person, because talking in person is so much more rare than talking online or
Yeah.
on the phone. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I bet you there's a percentage sort of shakeup of how much communication is done in person versus online. Should we find this?
If you got it up, I can look, or Reva can look it up. Don't think I can multitask, but if you can, feel free.
Okay. Let me see here.
So a percentage of communication that has shifted to non in person, basically, is what we're looking for.
I'm just wondering what communication. Yeah, what is on in person and online? What percentage is texting? What percentage is
Mm-hmm.
communication that is in person? What percentage is online? So, I mean, there's got to be a pie chart
Yeah, there has to, and
somewhere.
it has to have shifted obviously dramatically for sure. But it's still like I have a really hard time. What is your preferred? I mean, what is the best way? You want people to text you, for instance? Is that your thing, or do you like to
Yeah, I
get on the
mean,
telephone? Nobody likes to be
honestly,
on the telephone anymore, but I sure do.
no, I hate being on the phone. I would say texting, and I know that that's antisocial, and I don't care
Mm-hmm.
what other people's opinions are really about it. But the talking with other people is by far my least favorite function of any smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
That whole
That seems to
that
be predominant for people at least younger than I am. I'm a little bit older than you. I don't know if that has to do with it, or it's just the type of person that I am. I'm sure my father likes the phone better than text too, but I don't know if it's that or just me. But it's something about. I mean, I prefer being on the phone because I was listening to you and Scott Adams talk, which I like Scott Adams a lot. But a lot of the stuff kind of revolves around persuasion, and I
Mhm.
feel a lot more persuasive verbally than I do with a few. I mean, aren't you limited in how to persuade somebody on a short form text message? I feel like my tools are taken away.
Maybe, or maybe it's easier because their mind is filling in the blanks. I think it just takes a different set of skills, but yeah, if you're trying to get somebody to take action, they can just put their phone down if it's texting. But if they're in front of you, yeah, you could sell them, you can watch them. There's social pressure that's not there in other areas. But I think for most other conversations, it's fine. You can send a text and it looks very matter-of-factly, and they keep rereading it, and there it sits, doing persuading them without you even being there. So it just sort of depends on what you're trying to do.
No, you're right. I guess all those things are different. And one of the principles I try to tell myself as a person, like I said, I think there's a little bit of a generation change from people that grew up, like you had the internet. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
37.
Oh, I'm 37 too. So you must have lived in a place where you had more technology than I did. I grew up in the woods, but that's all.
Yeah.
But so you grew up with the internet around? Like your own CompuServe and stuff like that?
Yeah, I got a computer when I was like 13, and I immediately was like, I need a modem. I got to figure out how to get a modem. So I went and got a modem, and it was awesome. I went online, I found pirate bulletin board systems with pirated software and started talking with all those guys. Got all kinds of inside out. It was awesome. It was a portal to another world that was far more interesting than what I was currently experiencing.
Where were you? Where did you grow up?
Michigan. I grew up in Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah, my friend got a computer, and my computer at home was no longer doing the trick. I had an Apple IIc, which is like old as hell. And so then my parents were like, fine, we'll get a new one. And so I got a new one, and I just got obsessed with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, but the thing that I think is interesting is the divide and if you're my age, you'll probably see this too. The people that stayed in Michigan, that I imagine they do vinyl siding now and things like that, whatever it is that they did. Yeah. People went to your high school, people that took the shop class, whatever it was. But the people that didn't move out or move on or whatever, those people to me seem like they're in grave danger of not adopting technology. Like your younger people seem to have no issue at all. They seem to adopt each new platform as it comes intuitively because they know it's fundamental. But a lot of people that we went to high school with didn't register technology till later, and they still do think shopping on Amazon is weird or for the kids, And I think that's going to be really interesting that the I think you have to force yourself to adopt new technologies, or you really run the risk of being lame duck, the old generation. It was funny when my grandma didn't know how to email. It's not going to be funny when you're 45 and still hadn't picked up online shopping.
Then it becomes a huge problem for a lot of people. I noticed that there's a lot of people that really don't seem to find it urgent to adapt to modern communication. And exactly. I just feel like we do that at our own peril, really exclusively at our own peril. And for me, that's a little bit of a mystery. I don't understand why someone would do that to themselves. I think it's just such a horrible, horrible idea to really not be able to figure out and not even try to figure out modern communication. It just seems like I don't understand why people do that.
It's
really have no
certainly
clue.
At their peril, but it's the impulse. I don't know. Maybe you don't identify with it, but sometimes I have the impulse where I say, "Oh, the Snapchat, whatever. That one's not for me. Whatever. This is just I'm out here. I'll stick with what I know. It almost is a little bit satisfying or gratifying, or you make yourself feel better by insulting those kids. They're doing the whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I remember when Twitter came out, I thought, well, that's for like girls or something. That's dumb. It's that's the first thing is to try to say something bad about the thing you don't understand, I think, is the impulse. But when it comes to technology, it probably is the wrong impulse for everything to, poke fun of a thing you don't understand immediately. But I think that's what's behind it.
Of course. That's funny. You thought Twitter was for girls?
I don't know. I just my wife told me about it, and it just had this little birdie thing. I'm like, well, and I was way too late on that. And I learned that lesson. I was like, whoa. I was like, that looks like some silly thing that it wasn't like I really thought it was. I didn't investigate it enough. She just said it was. I thought it had a feminine. Who cares anyway? But I thought it had a feminine name, and my wife was into it, talking to her friends or something like that. And I thought, well, it doesn't seem important to me. But I should, I was way too late on that one. And I was okay. I'll just pay attention from now on. Things.
Well, when did you get Twitter?
Oh, not that late, but probably 3 years too late. And then I felt like I was playing catch up or whatever after that. So. Not a big deal, but that was just an example to me of my first impulse was make fun of that thing that she was doing, is what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
And then
okay.
I realized, oh wait, that is the wrong attitude. So, the antidote for that is something else that you said, I think, last time we spoke, which is about internalizing things or being introspective, which is the other quality that people tend to lack. Do you find introspection to be one of the most important things?
I do find it important. I think it's extremely important to be somebody who's constantly looking at areas in which you can become better or that you should become better. Mm-hmm. And I think people stop growing a lot of the time when they're young because they don't do this. They don't think, how can I figure out how to make myself better in some way, do something that's going to have a long-term value? Because really you're investing in yourself, and investing is just, the whole point is it pays off later on down the line in a way that's bigger than you could do over any shorter amount of time.
Yes.
So I don't know why you would not want to invest in yourself. And the way that you invest in yourself is only through introspection. I mean, you can only find what you need by being introspective. So I can think of few things that have a higher return on investment for time than thinking about what you really want and how you can get it. Mm-hmm. By deserving it, by becoming a person who deserves or is capable of creating what you want. I don't understand why people wouldn't do that. And I see that some people have fear of doing that. They don't like what they see, but it's kind of like saying, man, this roof is going to collapse anytime. What I should definitely do is probably paint over that big hole, because man, I'm sick of looking at that. I'll put a poster over it.
Or the defensiveness is what I see as the enemy to introspection. But it's like, it's somebody else's fault or whatever. Like when you blame shifting is every time I'd say every time you make an excuse and every time you engage in pure defensiveness, you're robbing yourself of opportunity to learn something or grow or do something better. Like I was sending, I have, when I send these files of the podcast to edit, sometimes something will get out of order or not the right thing, and somebody says, well, you gotta get the, whose fault is that? And well, the person that edited whatever it is did it wrong. And that's like, well, let me resist that temptation. Is there something I could do? And it's, oh yeah, I know, I will clearly label the files. I'll take the extra time. I'll make it dummy proof for them. And now I've developed that habit. And you know what? Definitely not their fault. My fault. I don't just, you can't put it on other people. Every time you do or make an excuse or say, well, it doesn't matter, or it's their fault, then you've robbed yourself of a moment of discipline or introspection, or, taking the step in the right direction of improving yourself. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, especially think about that's like extreme ownership. You ever heard of that book?
No, but
Extreme
I like the
Ownership?
sound of it.
Extreme Ownership is my friend is a Navy SEAL, and named Jocko, and he wrote this book called Extreme Ownership, and it's awesome. It's a business
Jocko
book.
Willink. Yeah, I know him. Yeah. I don't have his book though, but yeah.
You got to get that book, man.
Yeah, we'll do.
It's a book that one chapter will be a war story that applies this principle, and then the next chapter is them teaching it to some corporate people how to use it, or whatever. And it's amazing. And the extreme ownership concept is essentially in any organization, especially like the SEALs, where the consequences are death or like torture or something if you screw it up. The idea is, let's say you have to look for wherever the organization that something that could be your fault, so to speak,
right,
or within your control.
Yes.
So it's really easy to go, man, my editor screwed this up and released the wrong file. That's easy, but it doesn't solve the problem. What's harder is to say, my editor released the wrong file because I didn't label the files clearly enough, so he got the wrong file to edit, and then nobody checked the final product. So I should probably do a quick 30-second pass-through, using the scrubber to listen to the file and just make sure it's the right one with the right content in it. And then that way I can fix this going forward and it'll never happen again. So that in that I did not do that part is my fault, and I can fix that next time. It doesn't mean that other people don't share blame. It just means that part is mostly irrelevant for your purposes.
Yeah.
It's got to be something that you control and that you accept responsibility over. And it's great because you can really take it to the extreme where it's like, I can't believe that guy broke in here and stole my laptop. What the hell? That guy's awful. He should go to prison. This neighborhood's gone to crap.
Right.
Okay, well, I left the laptop out And, I go to coffee shops and I leave my laptop there. So I'm relatively careless with this laptop. It shouldn't be a big deal because I should have insurance on it, but I didn't bother doing that because I assumed it would never get stolen, which is foolish because people steal things.
Yeah, certainly somebody else's fault, but
yeah, it's like, what part of it is your fault? Oh, it's only 0.0001% your fault? Okay, we'll focus on that.
Focus on that,
not,
exactly.
You didn't lock your door, so somebody had an easy time breaking in. That kind of thing, you can really do a lot to improve your life and your business and your family life and the relationships you have with other people, instead of just saying, Jenny's always late. She's such a jerk. She's always late. All right, well, then tell her that have you had a conversation that you're not going to put up with this anymore? Well, no, it's not my responsibility, blah, blah. Yes, it is.
Yep.
It is. Or how about you stop being friends with Jenny? Oh, well, yeah, I know. You'd rather complain.
And
I get
keep
it.
things the same and continue to complain. That's your choice.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I got to read the book. You're right. But so the one of the ways that I view that is just from I think of things as utilitarian, pragmatic efficiency. That's just my general mode. But if other people have stuff wrong with them, is that true? Yeah, of course it is. Everybody does. My wife, all the way down to everybody in the world that you interact with, they got stuff wrong with them. So your choice is to try to change them or you. I mean, both are paths to improvement, and I would like to see growth in the people that I'm closest to. So good. I hope they improve. I hope they deal with their issues. I hope I can be a part of that. But still more effective is working on myself. I'm 100% me. That's the thing I can change. In the antithesis of it is getting mad. I love it when people get mad at other people in traffic, and then they spend the time and energy yelling, beeping, trying to explain to them with hand motions what they've done wrong or something like that, as if that will ever matter, as if you'll ever encounter that driver at this intersection again. Like, how wasted of time is that? It's like you're trying to correct somebody who's not going to be corrected, who you'll never see again, and you are not improving your situation whatsoever, but it's people's sense of justice, or they want to correct them, or whatever it is, but it's just completely inconsequential. But you have some opportunity to change 0.1% of what you do in the car, which will apply all the time because it's you. So don't worry. It's not that effective to fix other people. We know that. It's not going to work. So all you got left is you to fix.
I love how you describe it as hand motions. There's only one hand motion that people are using to describe when they're frustrated on the road. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it is totally ridiculous. There's a video that I saw that had millions of views, I want to say. And the reason it had millions of views, it was a motorcyclist that I guess like somebody had cut him off, and the motorcyclist went up to the car and started kicking it.
I saw that. Yeah.
And then he wipes out, and the bike explodes, and the guy's rolling around on the ground like, "God damn it," And it's such sweetness because everyone's sort of like done something dumb on the road, and then someone gets road rage, and it's like, what are you doing? So you see this guy just get it back, so hard.
Yeah, and you don't get anything out of being retributive to people that you don't even re-encounter. Like, I understand if somebody's messing with you and on the playground, you're going to see them tomorrow, then how you interact with them may matter. But at the road, it's gone. You never see the person again. It doesn't even matter. So it's all a waste from any kind of utilitarian point of view, pragmatic approach at all.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The people that I like are people that are into physical stuff and mechanics. So we tour the country like in a tour bus basically. And some of the best wisdom that I've ever gotten are from some of these very strong, calm men that run diesel mechanic shops that work on big trucks and have all these employees. These guys, it's happened on at least 3 or 4 occasions. When I'm talking to these people, it is so pure and pragmatic in the way they methodically look at stuff and they go through it, and the way they engage their employees and stuff. It's unbelievable. I've learned. I know it sounds crazy, but I love working on the bus that we have and seeing the super mechanical things that are done. But there's just so much wisdom there that I think is crazy. And one of the things that came out of that, my favorite mechanic, he is sitting there. He's just full of wisdom. But he when people come up to him and his employees keep coming up to him and saying, "I can't get this screw. I can't figure this out. What do I do here? What do I do here?" And he just kind of face palms. He says, "Your job is to bring me solutions, not problems." And I just think that is the exactly the way everybody should think. Your job is to ask the question yourself, solve it, and then bring a solution to your boss.
Yeah.
That is the best. It's kind of an extreme ownership principle.
Yeah, the bring me solutions, not problems
Mm-hmm.
thing is famous, and I forget who said that.
Yeah.
Let me see. Bring me solutions,
It's so
not
clear.
problems.
I'm sure this guy didn't make it up, but it's so effective in that world that you can just see how it. If you just keep going to the boss and you ask him, "Wait, how do I change this? What do I do with this?" Then you're just robbing him of his time, and he figured it out somehow, which means you can, and you can improve yourself and help him. All those things are going to just continue to work together for your benefit. The principle is pretty sound, I think.
I agree. Yeah, actually, I think speaking of Scott Adams, he's one of the first results on Bring Me Solutions,
Oh,
not
really?
problems. Yeah, there's also a lot of people who are saying that itself causes huge amounts of problems. But yeah, it's
Oh,
in fact,
people
there's a
critical
ton.
of that statement, you mean?
Yeah, being critical of that statement.
What is
yeah.
the pushback on it? I'd like to know if you see it there.
Let's see. Why don't bring me problems, bring me solutions is bad. This is just like the first one that I picked out here. The thing about this is, seems good on the surface. You create a workplace where people don't want to speak up. It says while it empowers businesses believe the phrase empowers employees to take initiative, but instead it teaches them not to speak up about a need unless they have a proposal to fix it. Mm-hmm. When you ask for solutions, you create a culture of advocacy rather than a culture of inquiry. Most creativity, most innovation happens when somebody points out a problem that has not yet been solved. So,
well, in the spirit of extreme ownership, I will take that point. Maybe that is true. But I think I can see on a cultural level and a large level if you're reinforcing that. But on an individual level, I still would think that it applies or has served me well. Interesting, though. So I was interested in your conversation with Scott Adams and persuasion itself. You seem to be really prepared for that conversation. And I was just curious, what is your preparation for? Do you get people on the show that you're interested in, or do you get people and then go out and then they do a bunch of research before they come on your show?
Both. A little bit of both. Some people I'm already interested in. Some people I just find, they come on the show for some other reason, and then I will figure out what's interesting about them. So I'll do a lot. I'll read their books if they have more than one. Sometimes I'll read both or whatever. And I will read their blog posts. So for Scott Adams, he doesn't have a book. I mean, he does. Actually, I'm sorry, I take it back. He has a book, but it's not new. Mm-hmm. So rather than read that, I've read about 50 of his blog posts.
And do you do that in the couple days before they come on or kind of thing like that? Like
I do it in the days before they come on
per episode?
Yeah, I probably do about 10 hours of prep, maybe a little bit less. And I take notes on what I read from them and put those notes in a document. And then before the show, maybe an hour or a day before, I go through those notes and then I ask myself questions that I would have based on those notes, and those go in the notes. And that's what I use to run the conversation itself.
10 hours of prep you do per episode?
Yeah. Did you not do that much prep for this show?
I told you I listened to the Scott Adams and You podcast on my way here.
Oh, okay.
No.
Nice.
No, I do. I like to do prep, but I don't have that discipline. I just don't. I'm doing too many things. I'm hoping some of them will fail, and then I'll work harder on the ones that remain. But I like to prep, but I get back and forth on it. Like sometimes over preparing, I feel like I don't use it, or I was stilted, or it's not natural, and those kinds of things if I over prepare. Plus there is some time constraint there, but I imagine that you probably reap massive incidental benefits from doing the prep. So that's kind of the trick, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely get a lot of
stuff all the time that who cares if it comes up in the interview. Now you have learned something instead of watch TV.
Yeah. I read 2 books in preparation for someone's show, and now maybe I only get to 15% of the material I got from the book, but I read the whole book and picked out the parts that I thought were interesting.
So you're ultimately the winner either way.
Exactly. Exactly.
No, that is smart. So, like I said, I'm just interested in how other people do stuff. I'll take some percentages of the things that you do and continue to apply them. But I've been listening to your show for a while, and so I love that about podcasting is I get to listen to people do a thing And then that's what everybody likes about podcasts. They go, I feel like I'm sitting right there and I could talk to them. And I have one. So then I do get to talk to them. So it's just kind of picking up where that conversation, I enjoy it so much. So it's kind of natural for me. Last thing I want to ask you about is, do you have a specific approach to, you came from Michigan, I imagine, where'd you go to law school? Where was that?
I went to University of Michigan Law School.
Okay. And so then didn't you come out west after that? I mean, you started Art of Charm in Michigan then.
Yeah, I started Art of Charm in Michigan, went out to New York, and then flew out to LA, and now I live in San Jose.
What was your approach? Was it deliberate or incidental, the networking or your reach with people who are your friends or celebrities and stuff like that? I mean, you've been doing it so long. Is that more incidental, or has that been very intentional to get to know or network to important or famous people?
But it's definitely been, it's funny because I started off doing it like, okay, this is, something that I got to work at. I got to work at it a lot. I got to figure it out. How do I do this? How do I do this? And then now, though, I realize, well, wait a second. This is exactly the type of thing that is starting to come naturally. And now I end up with a bunch of my connections because it's like somebody who listens to the show introduces me, or I hang out with somebody and I'm like, oh, this person will be really interesting. So I end up with that type of connection that way. But it definitely started with seeking them out, for the show itself, definitely.
So you use the show as leverage to be able to talk to people, and then, if you do a good job, and they'll come back, and you get other stuff like that. But so relatively natural. But again, I give you props for that because the whole thing is set up, your whole project here is set up for your own personal development too, which is great. And we live in this time where people want to learn from other people, and it's like, everybody just shares their information, which ultimately helps them anyway. And I think of the human race as a sharing project. I know that's really vague, but that seems like the most important thing we can do is, the morbid way to look at it is all you do is collect information, then you die and it's gone, right? So the opposite of that is to share as much as you can about what you can collect, and then it will keep on going. And that seems to me to be the human project. And it only seems like in recent years people have figured that out. Like, you learn, you share it, you tell people essentially everything you know, you don't hold it back. And it just keeps on going. It's just really neat. So I don't know if that's intentional, but it seems like you've got all these compound effects of, well, I read the books, I do this, and then I learn the stuff, and I get to talk to the person, and I'm looking for important people, but they're also important, and then they also know a lot of stuff, which is why they're important, and then that feeds it. It's just a feedback loop on itself. So it seems like you've designed a system. I don't know if it's your entire life or how much you separate work and everything else, but it seems like you've designed a really good system with some good feedback loops.
Yeah, it's definitely been intentional. That part has been intentional, no doubt about it. And it also has worked out pretty well as a result of that. It's definitely been something that makes sense for me to keep doing, because you're right. Yeah, it pays dividends.
Pays dividends. That's exactly right. And is your personal life separate from this, or does it all blur out to you? Is it?
It all blurs. Yeah, it all blurs out.
Okay, so it all blurs out. Yeah, which I think is another essential thing of the feedback. Too.
Yeah.
It's weird. It seems a little bit weirder to separate. I have a hard time with that, although I can understand why people would and do. Mine's pretty blurry as well. But Jordan, I've enjoyed talking to you very much today. This is a great episode. I think my listeners are going to get a ton out of the thinking about the way that you think, and I'm sure they'll come listen to your show. I hope they will all go listen to Art of Charm. They'll find, if they like this show at all, they'll love your show. So,
well, good. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks
for the opportunity.
All right, we'll catch up again soon. Happy 4th of July.
You got it, man. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.